I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:15. Roll call, Tom Barney,
Here.
Eric Brown,
Here.
and Michael Loth. I am here. Item 3, agenda revisions and approval.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, Tom Barney, motion to approve, second by Eric Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Item 4, approve minutes, approval of the November 18th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, Eric Brown, approval of the minutes. Tom Barney, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 5, consent review and discuss December vouchers. And that is Brittany Altendorf, please.
I received 5 questions, I believe, regarding our vouchers that were in our packet. The first question was regarding beastacademy.com for $2,650.16. The question was, does it cover the whole district? And the other portion of the question was just a statement of that it's a math supplement. And that is correct, it's a math supplement. We have had this curriculum or supplement in the past, but it turns out that all of the teachers did not have the same materials. So this is just adding to it, so all the kindergarten through 5th grade math teachers have consistent materials. I don't know if they were sharing them in the past when others weren't using them, but this is the dollar amount to make sure that everyone has the same materials for math at the elementary level.
Thank you.
The next question I received was regarding Hendrickson. 2 tables were purchased for the IT department. The total was for $3,488.94. The question was regarding the tables, could we have them built in-house? The question, or the answer to that is these specific tables could not be built in-house due to the fact that they are for when the technology department works on Chromebooks or laptops, that the table is grounded, and so there cannot be any electricity that could possibly hit the items that we're working on. So that's why the tables cost more than the average table you would see.
Okay, when I looked it up, I saw welded steel legs, but I thought I saw butcher block top, so that's why I brought up our welding shop and our wood shop.
Oh.
It looked like, but maybe the tables we got had steel tops on
They
them.
do have
They
steel
did,
tops.
okay. So what I saw online for $1,500, amazingly, was not exactly what we got then. Okay, that's fine.
I can send you the details of
These
that if
tables
you'd
were
like.
the repurchase of tables that were originally bought that weren't grounded, correct?
So originally, there were cabinets purchased in which then we were going to have the wood shop create a countertop for it. That was not a good purchase, I guess, from the past technology department. So this current technology advisor, or administrator,
Supervisor.
thank you, supervisor has a different plan. So we are going to try to return the other
Okay.
cabinets. The next question I received was regarding Johnson Control Fire Protection. There were 3 different invoices that were paid for a total of $6,516.64. Mr. Lord is going to go through that invoice just because it is more technical than I understand when I went through the invoices earlier today. Oh, you gave it back to me.
So, just so everyone knows, I asked because on some of these bigger ticket items and important items like this, fire panels, I'd like to go over this stuff in
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
building and grounds.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to Johnson Controls, they're not known to be, for lack of better words, a cheap date. So essentially what MacArthur's came down to, which is where I believe the majority showed up here between that and Amieville, the extended power supplies, which are, they're the 50 amp internal power supplies, not only were the batteries 6 years past their due, recommended point, I should say, but the actual internal chargers were replaced as well. So when you see that, that is both of those put together, and that was on a card 15, if I recall correctly, which was replaced. So they are not always the best at itemizing when it comes to labeling them on their work reports or anything, just due to the fact that you typically get a different technician every time they show up. But those were the big ones there, and then we had a couple of devices that during our lockdowns were not releasing, and we had those replaced as well.
Okay.
Those
So-
were mainly the relays that, excuse me, the relays that needed to be
So
replaced.
I take it the batteries were dead,
Yep,
very dead?
yeah, and we
Okay.
actually, we have several that we've replaced in-house, and I kind of did a rough district-wide maintenance inspection with them, because we had, it was a really weird time, I don't know if it was a lightning storm or what, but pretty much every building had, it was a Christmas tree inside the panel, so I had them come out to give us a address on everything, and actually it turns out that we must have hit that turnover year for our batteries, which I almost never have them replaced, just due to the fact of cost. We can do that portion in-house.
Okay,
A lot of the other things, just to generalize it, to keep the liability on their side, for our life safety equipment, we have to let them do it. Amy Bell, I believe, was just the, we had three alarms going off on that panel. That one ended up being a battery and a bad card that they ended up replacing. And then the door, it mentioned something about the door, which was very vague, but that was a contact that we can get and do on our part. So
Okay.
we told them to hold off from that. Excuse me.
okay, very good, yeah.
Okay. The next question I received was regarding an invoice for $2,311.01 to the Village of Richfield Department of Revenue. This is for chargeback requested, rescinded, or refunded taxes. And the question was to just give a little bit of explanation on why we give taxes back. Property taxpayers will pay taxes in a year, and then they can either go back to their municipality and state that they overpaid because they didn't agree with their assessment, or previous tax years that they didn't agree with the way that their property was assessed, commercial or residential. And then if that comes, the municipality reports it to the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue will either approve or deny it. And then if they have to pay the taxes back, they will then go back out to the different school district or the technical college and ask for the taxes back. So these are previous year's taxes that people paid in that we have to refund back. That answer that question?
Yeah, and I think it's also a case of if somebody doesn't pay their taxes.
Oh, correct.
It also occurs, it's not like there's a magic finance machine out there that we get the money anyway. If they don't pay, we just don't get it. Now, I guess my curiosity is if they don't pay for long enough, the local community or the county puts the place up for auction, because they're always gonna get their taxes. So the question might be is, do we get our taxes when they get their taxes, or do they just keep our portion because they had to sell the delinquent property?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
we
tough
don't
question,
get a
right?
separate, check from them years down the road. We only get what we invoice them once
A
we
year
set our
before,
levy.
yeah.
So the
That's
answer
what
is
I-
probably no, we don't get it.
That's what I figured. So anyway, I kind of asked the question, not only for the taxpayers' renewed knowledge, but also for board members also that might not have known that, because I don't know that we see a chargeback every year, maybe from one community, but this time I think we had one from each community that we serve, which was kind of odd.
Unique.
Yeah, nice putting them all in one group in the vouchers, so they were easy to find.
We must have received them all at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, they
So,
were all
yes.
in order.
You're welcome. And then the last question we received was regarding Mrs. Cole and Pupil Services credit card and why there was not detail listed out into their credit card. They did have a new staff member entering this into Skyward, and they did it incorrectly, but they have now received training. So moving forward, there will be more detail, and it will be separated. It looks like it's one large paragraph of the purchases that they had in there. So moving forward, that will be changed. Those are the only questions I received.
Okay, very good. I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent to payment vouchers as presented and reviewed.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Okay. We've got item 6, reports and updates, 2023-2024 budget and fund balance. Brittany Altendorf, please.
So usually in the month of December, Baker Tilly comes and reports our audit findings to the Finance Committee. They did have a conflict with the date that we have with another school district, so they asked if they could come in January. So they will be coming to the committee next month. But I did want to give an update on the June variance report that I gave on August 5th. After our audit was completed on December 5th, we did have to make one slight correction. You can see that there was, on both sides of the general fund, the expense and the revenue side, there was a decrease of $21,793.64, again, on both sides, because we had an accounting error in which we capitalized on principal and interest of our debt, and we should have only capitalized on the principal of the debt. So it was our error, but again, it was reduced on both sides. So I just wanted to give the committee an updated report. And then the other part that you have added to here is the breakdown of our fund balance that you see. The district has a policy to have our fund balance within a certain range. Our total fund balance percentages of all the categories is 18.5%, but you'll see that some of them are unassigned, assigned, and restricted. So some school districts don't say you have 18.5% of fund balance because 2 of the areas you are not able to spend if you need it. So our total unassigned is 14.9%, and then the assigned and restriction equate to 1.7 and 1.6% of our total fund balance. WUFR, or the state of Wisconsin, basically says that we have to categorize certain things in areas. So assigned fund balance, you can see that we had some of our items where we got grants or COVID relief dollars where we could use those for anything. So we keep them in our fund balance, and where they're designated for future curriculum when we do our curriculum reviews. And then also if we have facility items that are needed. So those are assigned for those 2 areas. Also in there is OPEB, which is our other post-employment benefits. That's if we have to pay out for our retirees, which we will have to in the future with our new plan, we have to be able to build up a reserve for that. So that's in the unassigned area, the assigned area. And then in the restricted fund balance, you can see that we have our funds that we are reserving for self-funded health insurance. We do need to build a reserve in there in case for some reason all companies or school districts that have self-funded plans have to have a reserve just in case the company would go bankrupt, which doesn't usually happen with school districts, but because it's the same plan, if you are in the private or public sector, you have to have a reserve for that. So I just wanted the board to be aware there that our total fund balance is 18.5%, but the unassigned, the areas in which we have not designated for somewhere is approximately 15%. But the auditors will come next month and they will say it's around the 19% range, and they usually don't deep dive into our fund balance. They'll just give an overall general, and I wanted the board to be aware that it is assigned for certain things. If that makes sense.
Okay, and what's our policy for?
I believe it's between 14 and 18%, I believe.
I think you're still looking to bump this a little higher if you can.
Mhm.
Every year.
just for-
Yep.
So we don't have to short-term
In,
borrow.
in 3 years, we've gone from 11% to between 15 and 18%.
Okay, very good. Okay. Then, item 6B, ESSER, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, final update.
Sure. Our ESSER was completed in this month, so in December of 2024. We had to have spending done by the end of September, but you could claim through December. So we did, as a district, receive a total of $4,158,564. There is a typo in my summary that we did not receive the $1,158,564. It should be the total of the $4 million. So we did receive all the funds that we were supposed to receive. We've spent them, claimed them, and received all the dollars. Yep.
So this 1 million we have received?
Yeah, so this number right here, 4.158, that should say 4.158.
This
It
one
should
down
say the
here.
exact same
Okay.
number.
Okay, because I had a note on that, was wondering about it, you just answered the question.
So there was different categories, as you can see further down the summary, that of funding for each school district, and each one of those categories had their own guidelines in which you could spend the funds on. So we received ESSER 1 of about $70,000. We did have about $4,000 that we had to give to the private schools of our total amount that we were allocated for. ESSER 1 was used during the beginning when COVID was happening, and they were buying like face shields and thermometers and those type of things, so we had to give a portion of those funds to the private schools. ESSER 2 was approximately $1 million. ESSER 3 came in two parts, Part A and Part B, and there was a certain percentage that you had to spend on loss of learning. So that was about $1.6 million. EBIS, which is evidence-based, evidence-based improvement strategies. So we had to spend it on certain categories to improve our learning, and we had to show what levels we were at, what we did, and then where our levels were afterwards. And then letters, it was a training that our teachers received. And we actually received 2 letters, grants. One was had to do with ESSER, and the other one was just a subsequent grant, but wasn't connected to ESSER. Some of the areas that I said, that I stated before, that we used our ESSER dollars for were to improve facilities, increase training, purchase curriculum, and provide stipends for our staff. A lot of school districts this school year, when they were doing their budget planning, had a shortfall because they used some of their ESSER dollars for costs to cover a gap they had in previous years. So when the ESSER dollars were done, they had a shortfall this year in their budgets. We did not do that this year. We tried to strategically use the dollars, so when the funds would be eliminated, we would not have a shortfall in our budget. So you can see on the second page a little more detail of what we used. I didn't go into like each line item specifics. We tried to categorize them to show the board the items, but most of them were curriculum, testing, trainings. Again, we gave staff stipends. Maintenance, we did some maintenance projects on them. So we did pay math interventionists and reading interventionists. We paid a portion of them. They did not work more, but we paid a portion of their pay out of ESSER because we were able to. So we might have moved an expense into ESSER that qualified for the grant, knowing that we could save that expense somewhere else and either use it somewhere else for that year on another one-time expense that didn't qualify for ESSER, or we used that and added it to our fund balance, as you've seen on the previous page, to go towards another project.
If I could add, Brittany's office and this finance committee maximized ESSER dollars to what they were meant to be. And we're not in a place that other school districts, as she mentioned, had to go to operational referendum because they used them to supplant their budget and utilize programming or staffing that was not a long-term sustainability, and then had to ask the taxpayers for additional funds. So we use this money the way it was meant to be. We appreciate this committee and Brittany's work on that.
I think it worked out well. I do have a question yet on the first page here.
Mhm.
There's the sentence that says, any remaining funds
You
have
can
been
delete
sent.
that sentence.
That should be deleted?
Yep.
Okay. I was pretty sure, but I just wanted to make sure.
Mhm.
Okay, so good report. I think that's it for Esser now, huh? No more
Yes, and we are,
reports?
I mean, we are very happy that Esther is over
Yeah.
in the world of trying to track and
Right. So,
figure out
yeah,
everything.
I'd like to thank everyone involved, including our building and grounds guy getting the work done just before the end of the year at Kennedy Middle School. And UV lights and the filters, I noticed also
Mhm.
in there. Very good. Okay, I guess moving on, item 7, we don't have any unfinished business. Item 8, new business, monthly purchase requests exceeding $15,000. Item 1, Metasys software server upgrade. Frank Lord, please.
Yes, thank you. The Germantown High School utilizes Metasys software as its building automation system. This controls the programming of the HVAC and lighting needs within the building. That ranges anywhere from scheduling of equipment to setting set points for temperatures, monitoring usage of general utilities between electric, gas, etc. The current Metasys system is operating on a 2016 Windows server that is nearing the end of its life cycle, and it's lacking the ability for any proper system updating at this point, which leaves it, I should have said, extremely vulnerable to various types of cyber attacks and system failures in general. Excuse me. The Germantown School District IT Department has deemed upgrading the current Windows system a priority between what any of our capital improvements should be as far as the side of programming and software, due to the fact of its vulnerability. And we are not able to update the Windows server without doing the Metasys software upgrade. They rely on each one another in order to do it properly. So, working with the IT department, Buildings and Grounds and IT department, plan to work closely to ensure a successful upgrade with minimal disruption to daily operations. With that, there really isn't much for disruption, so to say. It would mainly just be maybe some temperatures that might be warmer than normal for a little bit. But other than that, it does default in a manner that everything would stay lit and operating
Okay.
during that process. Yeah, and this would be funded through the Capital Fund 41.
Yeah, we're also through this in building committee, so I think
I
all
believe.
is well. Yeah, we covered it. I will take a motion.
Make a motion to move forward with a positive recommendation to the full board to approve the GHS Metasys server upgrade through Johnson Controls for the amount not to exceed $16,000 funded out of the Capital Improvements Budget Fund 41.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any further discussion? Yes,
I
Eric?
have a question. I'm going off of memory here. Did we recently in finance sign off on updating or programming the thermostats and everything at all the schools? Was it like $5,000 a school?
Hmm.
There was,
Was it that low?
we renewed the train
Yeah. through trade.
contract. That was my first year. I can't recall exactly when, but yeah, that's a three-year agreement, I believe it is.
But didn't we just do that again recently?
So this is Johnson Controls, which is a separate building automation system. Unfortunately, they are on their own island.
That's
at
why
the
I'm
high
wondering
school.
if this brought up
Yep.
if one exposed to the vulnerability of the other, if they're completely independent.
Completely independent, and that might raise an eyebrow too. Well, why don't we transition to train? That includes everything from equipment to anything as far as building automation systems. So it's an extremely costly swap out to get to train programming, which is what we're on literally everywhere else.
Yep.
Other than here, we have a small little it's like a Metasys one-off. But it does work well, and the way that it is set up is very functional and efficient. But it was deemed not to do the switch over. I believe it was just pre-referendum time, so, that's why there's that difference in the two,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, train arrived during the efficiency upgrades we did in about 2015, $7 million, I think. And that was the start of it. And I think train continued with upgrades during the referendum. And, yeah, Johnson Controls, it would be replacing a lot of things. AV boxes, right? AV, is that
Yep.
the right acronym?
Yep.
Don't ask me what it is. Air vents?
Yep.
Air venting,
Variable air, yeah.
variable air boxes.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a one part of the building is Johnson Controls.
So
and-
going forward, we're gonna be still having both these.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
probably
Alright.
for quite a
Does
while.
the cost look the same by title now? It's going, we
Yeah.
just did programming.
Yeah, they're honestly, they're the one in the one, but due to the instance at the time, having the equipment that we did have on Tracer Suite is really what the program is called. There's just no point in trying to go one way or the other, because
Okay,
you're wearing it both ways, so.
understood.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And then, let's see, we've got, item 8A2, enrollment projection study. Chris Ryder, please. Dr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Loth.
Yeah.
As you'll see in your packet this evening, there is a proposal from MD Roffers Consulting. Ms. Altendorf and I met with them in mid-November to discuss a long-term student enrollment projection study. If you remember back to in the Buildings and Grounds Committee meetings through our RFP process to look at a master site plan and facility use study. This firm came up multiple times. Ms. Altendorf and I met with MD Roffers and saw the scope and understood the scope of their process and how they go about working with local municipalities and doing a demographic study over time. You'll see many school districts they've worked with that are local in scope. We're proposing tonight the motion to approve a full study that would take place starting in February that would look at a study of projected student enrollment through the year 2040. This is essential in our long-term planning that would overlay with our facility study as well as help the conversation with our local municipality, the village, and outlines municipalities to discuss future expansion within this district so that we have an actual concrete number of what the projected enrollment could be. We looked at a recent study that MD Roffers concluded with the Watertown School District, who PRA and Cullen are currently working with, and they are within 2% of the projected enrollment that any single residential home that is built or apartment complex, they can pinpoint to a specific number or percentage of a number of a student or child that would be enrolled in the school district. They have a long-standing research-based methodology on how they go about their work, and we are asking that the Finance Committee approve this to the full board tonight. You can see there's 7-stage scope of services that are covered within this study that would take place over probably about 4 months that would work perfectly in our timeline as we see what our capacity and our needs long-term are for all of our 6 facilities, and then thinking about future expansion. Given Mr. Ewert's role recently on the Planning Commission and our connection with now someone on our Buildings and Grounds Committee, Ms. Cutts, this is a great opportunity to provide research and data to bridge that conversation moving forward versus what we might think would happen, but what we know in reality could happen. So you see the 7-point stage here around assembling data and base mapping, looking at the housing and community growth change, mapping the school district, municipalities, and neighborhood areas, analyzing and map recent home sales and neighborhood turnover, the project housing unit growth, project resident and total enrollment change, and then prepare for projected enrollment and presentation, which would be the final stage that MD Roffers would share with with the full board and probably the Buildings and Grounds Committee first. When we met with them, we were very, very pleased with how they talked through each of these stages, working with local municipality, working with the village board, working with the outside of the total Washington County, as well as real estate and housing developers. So we're asking tonight for, it's a large dollar amount, but it's something that's going to be value add through the year 2040 for the school district.
Anybody have any questions? I agree with the large dollar amount, but it's not our area of expertise. We educate students. We don't necessarily have that much to do with where and when homes will be built and so on. So I think these guys, sounds like they know what they're doing, and hopefully we get good data.
I agree. If they're the
From them.
professionals, let's have them
Yeah, I think
figure
it's,
out what we need in our district.
it's an opportunity for them to educate us, and then us to be able to educate the village on decisions that are impacting the taxpayers as a whole, based off of development that comes, and instead of doing it from a standpoint of assumption or belief that X development would drive X amount of population in the buildings, our school district, that it gives a little more firm number that we can all kind of agree on is done by a professional, so.
I would add that the districts that are listed here, I've reached out to superintendents in each of those districts, and their recommendation is the gold standard. This has been beneficial, and many of these have passed referendums or have plans of future referendum because of expansion. Not that we're looking at referendum, but they understand the capacity and the needs within their school district and their limitations, or we have space, and if you were to build X housing in these areas, this is where it should be. And I think to Mr. Ewert's point, that helps with our communication with the village when proposals come forward versus what we believe. We have a research study right here that says this is what could be will happen in the next 20 years within our confines of our school district.
Okay, I will take a motion.
Make a motion with a positive recommendation to the full board to approve to contract MD Roffers Consulting to engage in a student enrollment study for the Germantown School District in an amount not to exceed $25,500.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any further discussion?
I would just say that Brittany and I have consulted. This is we built this into the budget as
Okay.
far as long-term facility planning.
Okay, thank you for that. I think this study's a good idea. I certainly wouldn't have thought of it on my own. Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Tom Barney, motion to adjourn. Eric Brown, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 6:48 PM.